Hello everyone, I've just come to share with you a journal I've completed, a vintage junk journal which I've made using a 9x12 ordinary envelope that I've inked in walnut stain and covered with matte Mod Podge. I've just wrapped seam binding around it, it's not attached, and right, hold on. The seam binding is extra long, so there's plenty of room for the journal to grow. I've used crochet lace trim on the spine, and I used fabric glue that's discoloured it, so I switched to tacky glue halfway through, but that's why there's discoloration. I've attached two charms using a gird pin. One of the charms is like a little Art Deco key with a cat, and the other one is a hoop with flowers. That's an image I found online, and that's another image that I found online. I've said, haven't I, that I've inked it in walnut stain, the colour. The inside I've lined using papers from the Sweet Paris paper pack, and I've used a digi-kit from Tsunami Rose called Rosette Provision. This is a printable needle book, and inside I used an image of an old book of needles, and I've glossy accented the sewing needles, and I don't know if the camera will pick them up. I've also glossy accented this rose. I've topped the tags in seam binding ribbon that I've inked in Tattered Rose. These tags are from a kit called Chic Rose by Ephemera's Vintage Garden. That's Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and this is Tsunami Rose, but these didn't come with the kit. And I've made glossy accent the roses in those, I haven't yet. And I've just added lace trim to that page there. A wet wipe caused that was an accident, but these papers are dyed with red tea, and I've done corner punching and stenciling. This is a piece of ephemera that came with the kit that I've used to create a pocket. This is the library card that came with the kit. That's Tsunami Rose, and I backed those onto cream cardstock. Vintage printable lace holders from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and a piece of ephemera. This is a printable envelope, also from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and it's got some ephemera inside that I've inked in Vintage Photo. This is one of the Rita Donnelly corner pockets with a flip that I've stenciled in Vintage Photo, inked in walnut stain, and then stenciled inside in Tattered Rose. Some more of those mason jar tags, an index card that I have tea dyed using red bush tea. This was from a site called Vintage Moth. It's printable ledger paper. And this is Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and this, which I've also inked in walnut stain. Some more tags from the Chic Rose kit. Some more of those vintage lace holders that I may add lace to at a later date. Can't remember where I got those. I've just attached those with a paper clip. This is from the kit Rosette Provision, and I printed this one on vellum, and there's this printable ledger paper, doily. I've coffee dyed a doily pattern onto some graph paper that I've cut with graph scissors, craft scissors even. Vintage corset, that came with the kit. More pages from the kit, I had them printed on cream cardstock. More red tea dyed paper with crochet lace trims, and I have edge punched using my Martha Stewart doily lace punch. Some more lace that I used to create a tuck spot with some ephemera. And this is a gusseted grocery bag. There's lots of room to put things, and I've just decorated it with some ephemera. This came with the kit, as did these. This is just some ephemera. More of these little tags that I did. This is a printable envelope with some little journal cards. Another corner pocket with a flip with some more stenciling. I used Tattered Rose to stencil them. That came with the kit. Some ephemera. And I've inked that quite heavily in walnut stain. This coffee dyed papers now. Some very faint stenciling in antique linen, then more in vintage photo. This was from the kit and I printed it on vellum. Some washi, the middle of the signature, there was something on there, which I can't think. It's a little digi envelope that I've used just to hide the centre of the signatures, some fabric washi. I used 3 glassine bag envelopes, which I've inked in Tattered Rose, and with the 3 of them, I've used a crochet lace trim tape just to back, and they just slide in and out. I used this piece of ephemera to create a pocket. That's my son upstairs having a tantrum. This was one of those digi envelopes that came with the kit. I'll put everything back afterwards. The other end of the paper bag. Faint doily print there, some more ephemera. Big mason jar tag. I created a pocket with some edge punching. No, I can't turn the page. Right. This is one of those tiny digi envelopes, which has got one of those little mini journal cards inside. It's the envelope that came with the kit, but I printed it with on vellum. Another one of those vellum paper journal cards. So it's the other end of that graph paper, more ephemera from the kit, the other side of the doily, and of the printable ledger paper, more of that vellum. I did a doily tuck. I put some ephemera in, and I added one of those pieces from that little digi kit from Ephemera's Vintage Garden, and there's some more ephemera on the other side. This is a paper treat bag that I've stenciled using the Tim Holt stencil. Crochet lace trim tape at the bottom and then another crochet lace trim above it. And I've used this, so when you take the tags out, it's glued on, but if you want to close it, you can use that like a paper paddle. I glued it all down so there's not a pocket down the back of it. I didn't think till afterwards. That's the other end of that special ledger paper, the egg account. I initially sewed all the pages together, then realised I hadn't sewed them to the cover, so there's a little bit of damage down the centre. Then at the back I did a top tuck. Then the end of the pocket, the end of the envelope, there's a pocket. I lined inside with a fabric paper, and I also used packaging that my printer came with, just to strengthen the envelope, and lots of Mod Podge, but it was like polystyrene packaging and it didn't react well with my heat tool, so it's quite damaged and it's something I wouldn't use again. But that's the end of the journal. Thank you.